Welcome back to another video of Corpse Body, the Book of Shadows. Anyway, let's play. I can still clearly recall the events of the day even now. It was October, the day before my entrance exam. The weather outside had been miserable since morning, and visibility was all about non-existent. It would be a bad omen if I were to slip and fall on the day before the exam. So I decided I'd wear boots to school, just to be safe. When I opened the door, I was shocked to see a white-haired old man laying on the ground, soaked to the bone. I frankly rushed over to her side. The road running by my house was narrow and mostly used only by our neighbors. But it's not like it was closed off by outside traffic or anything, so a hit and run wasn't out of the question. I looked over the old woman's body as best as I could. Fortunately, there was no signs of any serious injury. The old woman raised herself up slightly and spoke hoarsely. From the tone of her voice, seemed terribly desperate. Not knowing what to say, I nodded apprehensively as the old woman began digging through her pockets. She produced what looked like a crumbled scrap of paper. As she was digging around, I noticed that her breathing had become dangerously ragged and began considering my options to assist her. Really, I should have gone back into the house and called my mom. But there was something about her that kept me glued to the spot. I sensed desperation hiding in the unbroken gaze. The old woman clutched my wrist and forcefully pressed the scrap of paper into my palm. Tilting my head, I unfolded the scrap and looked carefully at it. At first, I thought I'd just been handed a piece of trash. But when I unfolded all the way, I saw that it was actually a paper doll in the shape of a human being. And there was a name written on the torso. Our name. Yes, my name. Written in plain as day in easily legible brush strokes. Crazy. This is all crazy. I didn't understand any of it, save the one simple fact. This old woman was here, especially to give me this strange paper charm. As far as I was aware, we were totally strangers to one another, but she clearly knew both my name and my address.
やだ。ごめんなさい。せっかくだけど、私これいらないから。いらない。やっと。
As I extended my arm to return the paper doll, I could sense her entire demeanor had changed. She raised her body up unsteadily from the wet asphalt.
どうしてじゃ。わしが身を削って訪ねてやっているのに、なぜ誰もわしの言うことを聞かんのじゃ。受け取らぬなら絶対に天神賞に行ってはならん。天神賞？そうじゃ。行くな、行くな。
As the old woman cried out, the paper doll fluttered lightly to the ground. Almost instantaneously, it became soaked through the rainwater with rainwater. My name began to run quickly, turned into illegible black smudge. Seeing this, the old woman grabbed and tore at her hair. お守りが。おばあちゃん、落ち着いて。よいか、絶対に天神賞に行ってはならん。待って、おばあちゃん、私の学校は如月学園だよ。天神賞なんて知らない。おばあちゃん。大変。お母さん、大変。どうしたの？家の前で知らないおばあちゃんが倒れてるの。救急車呼んで。わかったわ。Paramedics arrived in a matter of minutes. The old woman seemed to be unconscious by that point. However, so the EMTs brought out a stretcher.
この方の関係者ですか？
いいえ、家の前で倒れていたので救急車を呼んだんです。身元は分からなくて。
そうですか。では付き添いで乗車はされませんか？
The idea of making this old woman go to the hospital by herself just seemed like it would have been a shameful thing to do. Sure, she was a stranger, but we had a lengthy conversation mere minutes before, so I couldn't very well say we had nothing to do with one another.
あんたは学校行っといで。でもこの方にはお母さんがついていくわ。あんたは今日面接の練習があるんでしょ？うん、そうだね。それじゃあお母さん、お願い。ええ。
I was a little hesitant, but I knew I really had to go to school today, no matter what. So I left the strange woman in the mom's care and, heading towards school, walked right by her stretcher. Suddenly, a hand rose from the limp form from the old woman and grabbed my skirt. Startled, I tried to jump away, but found myself ensnared by her terrible, bloodshot eyes. After school, once the final practice interview had concluded, I reunited with my friends and engaged in a usual regiment of gossip and small talk.
ってね。かわいい。何よそれ。
When I described the events of that morning, everyone's eyebrows rose. They were hanging on my every word and yelping in unison at the key moments.
今日は家でおとなしくしておけばよかったんじゃない？
だって今日は面接の最後の練習があるからどうしても来たかったし。何か起きないといいけど。やだ、やめてよ。何も起きないって。
思い出した。
え？
天神症って言葉がちょっと引っかかってたんだけどさ、七不思議に出てくるんだよね、天神症。
七不思議ってうちの学校に伝わる如月学園七不思議のこと？
そうそう。
天神症って何？
放課後のよしえさんって言うんだけど、聞いたことない？
知らない。私も知らないよ。どんな話なの？
如月学園が建てられる前にこの場所にあった天神小学校での話なんだけどさ。その天神小学校で放課後校舎の見回りをしていた女の先生が誤って階段から落ちて死んだんだって。その日は10月のちょうど今日みたいに雨が降る放課後で、時刻はそう夜の7時を過ぎたあたり。こういう日はよしえさんが出るんだって。
I don't know who Kana is, by the way.
天神小学校がなくなってしまったことに気づいていないよしえさんは如月学園の廊下を見回って歩いているんだよ。
やだ、それ本当？
まあ実際見たことがある人がいるから七不思議になってるんじゃない？
怖。ゆい、今日はもう帰ったら？そのおばあさんの言ってたことちょっと気になるし。ゆいだけ道が違うから一緒に帰れないじゃない？
だね。お年寄りの忠告は聞いておくもんだよ。
そうだね。なんかゾワゾワしてきちゃったし、もう帰ろうかな。それじゃあ先に帰るね。バイバイ。バイバイ。
Bye bye.
気をつけてね。明日ファイトだよ。私は慌てて荷物をまとめ教室を飛び出した。時刻は夕方5時になるところ。外は薄暗くなってきているけれど、階段の7時までにはまだまだ余裕があった。だから怖がる必要なんてないと、そう自分に言い聞かせて廊下を進む。それでも下駄箱にたどり着くまでの時間がやけに長く感じられた。ダメだ、やっぱり怖い。
お、よう獅子堂。
Hey, there's Tsukasa again.
司くん。
今帰りか？なんだよその満面の笑みは。
なんでもない。ねえ、途中まで一緒に帰ろうよ。
ああ、いいけど。
やった。司くんの顔を見たら一瞬だけだけど怖かったのが吹き飛んだ。こういう時男の子ってすごく頼りになるなって思う。そばにいてくれたら心強いなって無条件に思わせてくれるから。もちろんそれが気になっている人ならなおさら。雨は朝よりも弱まっていた。その中を私たちは傘を差しながら歩く。司くんとはたわいもない話でそこそこ笑ったりもしたけど、でも私はどこかぎこちなかったかもしれない。得体の知れない恐怖みたいなものがちらついて、いつもみたいに振る舞えている自信はなかった。
獅子堂？なんかお前顔色悪いぞ。
ああ、
おい、
実は
怖いことがあって。
怖いこと？
私の様子があまりにおかしかったのか、司くんは心なしか表情をこわばらせて私を見つめた。真剣に話を聞いてくれようとしているのが分かって、私はちょっと嬉しくなる。今抱えている恐怖をできることなら司くんと共有したかった。だから私は今朝あったこととカンナから聞いた怪談話を司くんに話した。だけど司くんは。
はあ、七不思議ね。七不思議を信じるなんて夢があっていいな。
え？
ん？
司くんは怖くないの？
怖いっていうか妙だとは思うけどな。でもその謎のばあちゃんと七不思議なんて単なる偶然だろう。気にしすぎだって。
でも
あんま深く考えない方がいいんじゃね？そのばあちゃんは確かに気味悪いけどさ、ちょっと変わった人だっただけだろ。
そういうんじゃなくて。
え？
解決方法を教えてほしかったわけじゃないよ。私は話を聞いてほしかっただけなの。
話なら聞いたじゃんか。
This is another thing I hate when some people do. They tell you a story, but when you give input, they're like, I didn't ask you. Well, then why are you telling me? Right? If you don't want my opinion, then why are you telling me something? And this is exactly what this guy is feeling now. He's like, well, that's what I've been doing. I have been listening to your story, and I gave my 2 cents about it. If you don't want my input, then don't tell me the story. Like, it's that simple.
だからそうじゃなくて。
はあ、わかんねえよ。なんか怒ってんのか？
男の子ってこういう考え方をする。
Guys always do. No. No, no, no. No.
人によるのかもしれないけど、でも女子とは違ってすぐにこうすればいいじゃんって解決法を提示しちゃうのだ。
It's not that they're giving you advice. Like, you ask them a question, you told them what happened for your day, and they just give input. It's not that they're trying to solve your problems. They just think about the way, something that you might want to hear in the first place, and they give their input about it. It's not like that bad, bro. Like, if you don't want to take the advice, you don't have to complain about it. Just say, okay. Change the subject. But like, jumping to conclusions here, like, he was just talking to you.
結果女子は言いたいことが言えなくて消化不良になってしまう。私は司くんと恐怖を共有したかっただけ。司くんが一緒に怖がってくれればそれでよかったのに。
So what, now you're disappointed that he's not scared of the teacher that fell and suddenly died without her knowing that she's dead? Now you're angry that he's not scared with you?
この時の私は気にするなって言葉が司くんの気遣いだとわからなかった。めんどくさいのかなってむくれてしまったのだ。
Now she's annoyed.
朝に見たおばあさんの顔が、目が、しわがれた声が何度も頭の中でフラッシュバックする。それが怪談話で増幅されてじわじわと私の気持ちを暗くした。あんなに怖い思いをしたんだからっていう甘えや八つ当たりの気持ちもあったんだと思う。私と司くんはこの時初めて気まずい雰囲気になった。
And that's another thing she just mentioned in the previous sentence. She's either yeah, she might just want to take it out on somebody. Like, yeah, go take it out on your cat. If you're gonna take it out on me, you'll never see me again.
それじゃ私こっちだから。
ああ、獅子堂。
He called out my name as I briskly walked away. I didn't really know why I was so angry or confused. But I did notice that his voice was tinged with concern.
なんかあったら連絡しろよ。
I considered turning back for a second, but changed my mind and pushed forward in a huff, leaving him behind.
ただいま。
ゆい、おかえり。
うん。
Greeting me at the door, my mother wore a somber expression. I could tell right away that something had happened. I stared at her with scrunched eyebrows for an awkwardly long time before she eventually reluctantly opened her mouth to speak.
今朝のおばあさんね。
うん。
さっき亡くなったって、病院から連絡があったわ。
嘘。
残念なことだけど、あなたは明日の推薦入試のことだけ考えていなさい。
うん。
それじゃ、あのおばあさんの話はこれで終わり。さあ、ご飯にするから着替えておいで。
わかった。それじゃあ私部屋にいるから。
ええ。
お母さんがキッチンへと引っ込んでいくのを見届けて、私はもぞもぞと靴を脱いだ。司くんにあんな態度をとってしまっただけでも嫌な気分だったのに、あのおばあちゃんが亡くなってしまっただなんて。
Oh my goodness. Now he has a bad attitude? Holy shit, dude. This is why, like, I just don't understand this, man. This is why I also don't get along with women very well. Like, I honestly don't, because, dude, he was just giving feedback. Now he has a bad attitude. Are you serious? Returning to my room, I couldn't muster the energy to do anything but collapse into my chair and sprawl out on the desk. The last thing the old woman had said to me echoed again and again in my mind. I began wishing I'd taken her more seriously. I shouldn't have accepted the paper doll and thanked her. I should have accepted the paper doll, sorry. I should have reassured her that I wouldn't go to Heavenly Host Elementary. I mean, the place didn't even exist anymore, for goodness sake. I was exhausted. It was a hell of a day, and I no longer even had the energy to move. I needed to change out of my school clothes, but still sprawled out over the desk. My eyelids drooped and closed. I was out. I awoke with a start. The air in my room had gotten nobly cooler, and I was shivering.
寝ちゃった。
Rubbing my eyes, I glanced at my clock. The needles indicated it was 6:45. Do you guys know why women rub their eyes when they wake up in the morning? It's because they don't have balls to scratch. Wink, wink.
もうこんな時間。
It was black outside my window, streaked with lines from the still pouring rain.
明日は晴れるといいんだけど。
Studying for my exam, the weight of what the next day held for me came rushing into my mind. I'd practiced the interview process with my teachers quite thoroughly, but I was still really nervous.
明日の用意しておかなくっちゃ。
There was still a little time before dinner. My mind swimming, I decided I'd take this opportunity to clean out all the notes and textbook I wouldn't need tomorrow for my bag.
残しておくものは学生証でしょ。それからハンカチとティッシュ。
Handkerchief and a tissue because one or the other is not enough.
受験票も忘れずに入れて、それからペンケース。あれ？嘘！ペンケースがない！ 学校に忘れてきちゃった。さーっと血の気が引いた。別に筆記用具で困ったわけじゃない。家にはいくらでも代わりがある。だけどあの中には司くんから借りた受験必勝鉛筆が入っているのだ。取ってこなくちゃ。
Oh my god, please don't go to school right now. Who in their right mind would do that?
私ちょっと学校に忘れ物取りに行ってくる。
え、もうすぐご飯できるわよ。
すぐ戻るから。
そう、雨も降っているし気をつけていくのよ。
I would be like, no, you'll get it tomorrow.
あの鉛筆は絶対に明日試験会場へ持っていかなければならないものの一つだった。だから私は迷うことなく学校に戻る道を選んだ。降りしきる雨の中、足元に気を配りながら全速力で走る。走っている間、ちらりと頭をよぎるのは起きた時の時間だった。6時45分。七不思議で語られていた時間は夜の7時。校門前に着いて真っ先に時間を確認した。校舎についている大時計が指し示す時間は6時55分。放課後の吉江さんの怪談話が再び頭をよぎる。10月、雨が降る放課後、夜7時。あのおばあちゃん、もしかしてこうなるのが分かっていて。やだな、もう。怪談なんてあんなの作り話だって。こみ上げてくる恐怖を抑えつけるために声を出して自分を叱咤する。見上げた校舎に人影はない。こんな時間なら生徒はもう帰宅しているだろうし、先生だってどれくらい残っているのか。けれど廊下の電気はまだ全てついていた。あれだけ明るければそこまで怖い思いをしなくても教室まで行けるだろう。よし、パッと行ってパッと済ましちゃおう。
I folded up my soaked umbrella and left it at the rack by the entrance, then changed into the indoor shoes. Then entering the brightly lit hall, I took another look around.
やっぱり生徒は誰も残ってないみたい。
My deep sigh echoed through the deadly silent corridor. Ordinarily, the din of other students would drown out noises like this, but every little sound was coming through crystal clear at this late hour.
急がなくちゃ。もうすぐ7時だ。
I nervously sauntered towards the classroom 3-4, picking up speed as it occurs to me to do so.
今朝のおばあさんね。さっき亡くなったみたい。
その天神小学校で放課後校舎の見回りをしていた女の先生が誤って階段から落ちて死んだんだって。その日は10月のちょうど今日みたいに雨が降る放課後で、時刻はそう夜の7時を過ぎたあたり。こういう日は吉江さんが出るんだって。天神小学校がなくなってしまったことに気づいていない吉江さんは如月学園の廊下を見回って歩いているんだよ。
もう何考えてるのよ私。七不思議なんて司くんも言ってたじゃない。深く考えない方がいいって。
Oh, now he's right. Okay. Lightning flashed and thunder resounded with impeccable timing. I jumped in spite of myself.
とにかくパッと教室に行ってペンケース取ってこなくちゃ。
No ghosts should show up in a well-lit building like this, right? Even if they did, they wouldn't be very scary under these bright lights.
あのペンケースに入ってる鉛筆は明日の試験にどうしても必要なの。
This is saying never jinx yourself.
だってあれは司くんがくれたお守りなんだもの。
I picked up the pace as I continued to head straight to room 34.
Juu 頭部の方はもう真っ暗だな。やっぱり誰もいないのね。それにしても今日はいつもよりこの廊下が長い感じがする。ただでさえこの廊下で遅刻しそうになるくらいなのに。
I continued my brisk walk down the impossibly long hallway towards my goal, jumping every now and then whenever another thunderclap sounded. Kisaragi Academy was comprised with both middle school and high school. And this evening, it really felt like it was flaunting its massive size. Didn't help that my classroom was at the high school wing, which happened to be past the middle school, making it seem that much further away.
いつもは賑やかな場所がこんなにも静まり返っていると余計に物寂しい気がするな。雨の音がやけに大きく聞こえるよ。
I was focusing on the scant few sounds away, me as I paced down the long, lonely corridor. Then, all of a sudden, I heard a faint noise, as if somebody's playing an organ.
今の空耳だよね。そうに決まってるよ。こんな時間に音楽室で楽器を鳴らす人なんているわけないし。
I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves. It was probably the sound of the rain, wind and thunder mixing together. It just sounded like an organ, that's all. I was convinced. I kept walking. But then, I heard the same noise again. This time much more clearly. It was unmistakable.
やだ。
I was paralyzed with fear. My heart was pounding as it were struggling to break free of someone's sinister grip.
きっとまだ吹奏楽部の子とか先生が残って弾いてるんだよね。そうだ、そうに決まってるよ。
Thinking about it, I vaguely recall someone mentioning an upcoming performance by the Wind Instrument Club. I guess an organ would qualify. Somebody must have just stayed late and practiced, that's all.
何でもかんでも怖い話に直結させちゃいけないな。
I took another deep breath and tried again to calm my overly jittery nerves.
怖いと思ったら何でも怖く思えるものだよね。
I'd heard that if you let your imagination run wild, fear can even make you see things that aren't there. And my imagination was most definitely running wild.
あとちょっとで教室だから走っていこう。
Your brain is the strongest muscle in your body. It can literally, if you think for long enough you're sick, you start to become ill. Like literally. Your brain is kind of insane, dude. Like, that's why they always say think positive about stuff. I decided to dash towards my classroom so I could get out of this hole as quickly as possible. Finally reaching the familiar door, I swiftly opened it and flicked the lights on.
やっとたどり着いた。あとはペンケースを忘れないようにしなくちゃ。
Thanks to all my unexpected pauses to freak out over thunder and lightning, it took me far longer than it should have to get here. It was already well past 7.
7時か。
It was the appointed time when the ghost of the teacher was supposed to appear at last, according to the school legend.
何もないじゃない。
I let out a sign of relief and relaxed my shoulders a bit. The lights were on both inside the classroom and out in the hallway. Sure, it was still dead silent, but the fear I'd been feeling is completely melted away.
全然怖くないよ。やっぱり七不思議だなんて嘘だったんだな。
I grabbed the pen case I'd come back to shove it into my pocket.
これで任務完了だね。
With my long ordeal behind me, more or less, I looked around the classroom and let out another sigh. I'd only ever known this classroom when it was bolstering with activity, and thus found the eerie silence and utter stillness to be oddly fascinating.
教室に私一人ってなんだか不思議な感じがするな。
I got the idea in my head to try doing something I normally wouldn't be able to, like standing at the teacher's podium and writing on the blackboard.
こんなシチュエーションめったにないし。
To me, the area behind that podium, for which teachers conduct their lessons, was like a sacred place or sacred space. I dreamed of standing there myself one day, and could hardly resist its pull when presented with a rare opportunity like this.
誰も見てないし。
To my classmates, this would seem like such a silly, stupid dilemma, but that didn't change the way I felt at that
ど
moment.
うしようかな。
Should I or should I not? Yeah, stand at the teacher's podium.
少しだけ先生の気分を味わっちゃえ。
I decided I had to try it. During the daily cleanup and such, I'd come to gone from this spot countless times. But this was the first time I'd ever had an opportunity to just stand here and preside over the classroom.
そうか。先生からはこんな風に見えるんだ。今日なんかちょっとドキドキする。
Getting a teacher's point of view, in the most literal sense, was starting to get me really fired up. It may seem silly now, but this was my stage. This was where all my dreams would play out.
私もいつか
I began to imagine the future that awaited me. Painstakingly detailing some of the new pieces of knowledge for students sitting attentively at their desks. Gliding chalk across the board, filling with the information to aid them in their studies.
いつか先生になれるといいな。
I was getting so excited, even I began to think my behavior was a little strange. Maybe it was the juxtaposition? Juxtaposition of those joyous, freeing visions and the prickling dread I'd been feeling up until this minute or two before. But then, in the blink of an eye, one of those two conflicting emotions completely overpowered the other.
停電
Suddenly, my surroundings were bathed in darkness. Going stiff with shock, I stumbled back a step. My back struck the blackboard with a dull thud.
いきなり何
I instinctively grabbed a hold of the rail where the eraser sat. I felt chalk dust against my fingertips. My panicked heartbeat was making it difficult to breathe. Was this caused by the thunderstorm? If so, it sure picked a fine time to turn the lights out on me.
しかもオルガンの音まだ響いてる。嘘、なんで？停電になってるならオルガンだって鳴らないはずなのに。
行くな。
Was this what the old woman was trying to warn me about? That's impossible. She was no fortune teller or psychic. How do you know? How do you know? That's someone's final words to you before they died. How could you possibly say that? As far as I'm aware, sure. How could she possibly have known this would happen? Because maybe, like, this is just a rough guess. She's a time traveler. And that is you. 40 years from now. Well, even if she were a fortune teller or a psychic, predicting the future is a stuff of science fiction. I shook my head.
落ち着くのよ、私。音楽室の方はまだ停電になってないとか、きっとそんな理由だよ。
I called my chalk-dusted fingers into a fist and silently tried to talk some sense into myself.
早く校舎を出よう。
I shouldn't have been playing teacher. I should have been in and out by now. Cursing myself a little, I stumbled my way through the darkened classroom. I'd spent so much time in here, you'd think I'd be able to find my way out of it with my eyes closed, as it were. But sadly, that wasn't the case. Smashing loudly into a desk, I knocked it on its side and began tumbling after it. That's just insane. Instinctively grabbing at the other desk around me for support.
いけない。机の中身まき散らしちゃったよ。元に戻さなくちゃ。
Still fumbling around badly, I gathered up all the scattered notes, textbooks, and writings utensils.
でも暗くて何がなんだか。もう何やってるのよ、急いでるのに。本当にドジなんだから。
I let out a sigh. I seemed to be doing that a lot lately.
これは教科書とノートでしょ。
I was trying to take inventory of all the things I'd knocked out of the desk, then realized why. I might as well just stand it up and stuff it all back in.
さすがに全部を間違いなく元に戻すのは無理だな。明日ここの席の子に謝らなくちゃ。
Not that that was particularly pleasant prospect. Explaining what I'd done wouldn't be easy, and no matter how I sugarcoated it, it would serve as a clear indication of my clumsiness. If I didn't say anything, it's not like I'd it'd be found out, but that would be the same as lying. As far as I'm concerned, it's not. And I couldn't do that. It's not. Dude, if you get to your desk and it's laying on the floor, who cares? You just pick it up again.
これで最後かな。
I placed my head against the floor and swept it around. Its hand, not the head, sorry. Feeling for anything I might have missed. And I found something, alright.
やだ。何これ。なんだかぬるぬるして。
I clearly brushed my fingers across something, but I had no idea what. It was no notebook or writing implement. Implement, yeah. Though that was for sure.
机の中からなんでブニュブニュしたものが。
Maybe it had been on the floor for a long time.
だろうこれ。
I rubbed my sticky fingers or fingertips a bit deeper into the wet spot. Oh my goodness. I then brought my hand up closely to my face and I could get a better look at what was there. What on earth did I just touch? There was a flash of lightning, almost immediately joined by the roaring thunderclap. And with it, for a split second, the pitch black classroom was lit up bright as day. I shot my feet, utterly mortified. In that split second, I'd gotten very good at my fingertip. What? I'd gotten a very good look at my fingers. Let me just say that. And it really did seem to be were covered in blood. But it wasn't just my hand. No. It was if my peripheral visions were to be trusted, it looked like the entire classroom was stained in a deep, dark crimson.
そういえば、なんとなく生臭い気がする。
Without thinking, I backed away from where I'd been crouching. I tried rationalizing what I saw. How could a whole classroom become a bloodbath like this? Did something spill? Did someone stumble in here injured?
ありえない。そんな、何よこれ!
My whole body was quaking. I fled from the classroom. Or rather, I tried to flee.
開かない！やだ！鍵なんてかかってなかったのに。今だって鍵はかかってないよ。それなのに、どうして？
I pulled on the door handle again and again in a frenzy. I was pulling so hard it felt like the fingernails might tear loose. But it just wouldn't budge.
なんでよ！
I was absent-mindedly grabbing at my hair with one hand and slammed my fist in a nearby desk with the other. This was a nightmare.
何これ!
Silence saturated the inky blackness of the room. I took several deep breaths in an effort to restrain my pounding heart.
とにかく一度落ち着かないと。そもそもドアが開かないのだって私がこんなにパニックになってるせいかもしれないし。
Goodness, dude, that's a long talking for that sentence.
さっきの変な塊だってきっと何かの勘違いだよ。だってありえないじゃない。教室にあんなわけのわからないものが落ちてるだなんて。
I was certain that when I saw what it actually was come morning, I'd end up being something totally random, like someone's old soda-stained gym clothes.
そうだよ。そうだ。指についたのだって美術に使う絵の具かもしれないじゃない。
My imagination was just running wild because I was panicking.
もしかしたらドアに何かが挟まってて開かないだけかもしれない。
I decided to check out the hypothesis by feeling my way across the door to determine if anything was jutting out of any of the cracks.
真っ暗で何にも見えない。
I fumbled around the gaps of the door, but just couldn't make anything out that would be by doing this. And the classroom's rear exit seemed a world away.
他の出口は。
No, this was the third floor. I couldn't get out of this classroom without exiting into the hallway.
今すぐ外に出たいのに。
Still at a loss, I noticed a sudden flash of light through the hallway window. But the glass was only translucent, so I couldn't be sure of its source.
歩いてくる
Then there came a distinctive clump of footsteps.
そうだきっと用務員さんだ
I recalled the existence of a custodian who always patrolled the school grounds. I was sure he must have been taking a look around after the sudden power outage.
助かった
All at once, my fear-addled legs regained their strength. This nightmare would soon be over.
すみま
I shouted to the custodian through the window, as loudly as I could muster.
せんすみません閉じ込められてるんです
I had to be sure he heard me. I shouted again. Finally, he could see the light out in the hallway again, and it seemed to be getting closer. However,
なんかこの光おかしい気がする
perturbed. I think that's how you say it, that word, perturbed. I took a step away from the window.
充電灯だったらもっと明るいよねこの光はなんだか
Like a faint, unearthly glow, classically attributed to spirits. Attributed to spirits, there we go. Was what I was thinking. I tried to stop myself from finishing that thought, however. Dullness aside, it also looked like it was wriggling around in a very unnatural, very unflash-like way.
それにこの足音
4 clumps, then a 3 or so second interval, and then another 4 clumps. They were sounding in a fixated rhythm.
用務員さんじゃない明らかに変な歩き方
The fear was back in full force. I had to find somewhere to hide. What if I'd accidentally summoned something inhuman? I mean, whatever that was, I begged it for help. I literally invited it in.
どこか隠れるところそうだ
Where did we hide though? The teacher's podium. I hurriedly hid myself beneath the teacher's podium. I grabbed my knees, curled up, and made myself as small as I could.
一体どうなってるの
The footsteps continued to draw nearer and nearer. Little by little, the sound grew louder. Every hair on my body was standing on end.
このまま通り過ぎてくださいお願いします
I held my breath, clasped my hands together, and silently prayed. They were close now, very, very close. Why was this happening? I couldn't make any sense of it. I just wanted it to be over. I prayed to God that it would end. Was this what the old woman was trying to warn me about? Was this all happening because I ignored her? Because I didn't take the paper doll from her? Was it because I'd heard the ghost story of Yoshi and allowed it to get to me? Or did the strange events of the day have nothing to do with what was happening to me now?
心臓が飛び出しちゃいそうだよ
I was still holding my breath. I didn't dare to let even the tiniest of sound escape and give away my position. Tap, 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 tap. The consistent rhythm of the footsteps suddenly ended halfway into one of its cycles. And it had ended right in front of this very classroom. I had goosebumps up and down my arms and legs. I stopped praying and collapsed my hands over my mouth. I knew I'd scream if I didn't. Could this be Yoshi? Was the school legend real? All I could do was close my eyes and keep my mouth shut and hope that whoever or whatever that is would just go away. But the footsteps sound didn't start again. It was this. If this was indeed Yoshi, then she'd stopped in front of the classroom and just standing there. I had no concept of time anymore. I stayed in my hiding spot for what was probably only a few minutes, but felt like at least an hour.
足音が消えた。
I decided to carefully peek out from under the podium. I gingerly edged my head out just far enough to get a glimpse of the room. When suddenly... That's terrifying. The footsteps rang out once more. It sounded like they were headed right for me, and they might have been inside the room. I honestly couldn't tell. I scrambled back into my hiding spot and covered my mouth with both hands. This was too much for me. My breathing was coarse and erratic, and my face was a mess of tears and snot. I was inconsolable. The footsteps just wouldn't stop. What on earth were they doing? It almost seemed like they were running around in circles just to scare me. I mouthed those words over and over again and moved my hands to my ears in the vain attempt of block out this torturous sound. And as if in response, the sound changed. It was a loud, dull thud, followed with silence, no more footsteps. I'd heard that sound hundreds of times before. It was the classroom door sliding open. I peeked out, but the door was still tightly shut. How could that be? If the sound I heard wasn't the door, then what was it? What little safety I'd felt here was pretty much gone. But to be fair, I wasn't absolutely certain that the spirit had seen or heard me either. The prospect of stepping out into the open wasn't a describable one, but I had to decide if it was better to stay where I was or to make a break for it. Make a break for it. Staying in one place for too long seemed like it would be inviting trouble. So I took a deep breath and reluctantly crawled out as quietly as I could. But almost immediately I felt something. Tap. Something long and thin had struck me on the back of the head. Or perhaps struck isn't the right word. There was a little force behind it, but it wasn't it wasn't a harsh slam. More like someone trying to get my attention.
木の棒？うん、これは指？
I knew I wouldn't like what I was going to see, but I had to face whatever it was. So I turned around, and there, looming over me was...
まだ残ってるの？早く帰りなさい。
A figure was peering down at from above the podium, with one immaculate washbone-like finger extending towards my face. I recognized this person instantly. No doubt about it. This was the strange woman who'd supposedly passed away earlier. I was scared out of my mind. I tumbled on the rest of the way out of under the podium and shot to my feet. A ghost. There was really a ghost in the school. My breathing was ragged, and my heart was pounding. So hard I thought I might explode. Plowing through all the desks in the way, I ran as fast as I could towards the classroom door. But that was as far as I could go.
したの？
There, on the other side of the door, tied up against the glass, was the old woman, and she was glowing blushing white, the source of the light from earlier. But how in the world did she get to the door before I did? How did she get out of the room so quickly and position herself so perfectly to block my exit? Felt like I was starting to hyperventilate and tried as best as I could to calm my breathing as my eyes darted about the room. I needed to get out of here now, to get as far away from this place as I possibly could.
前のドアから出られないとなると、外に出るには後ろのドアから出るしか。でもそうすると、廊下は前のドアにいるあの幽霊の後ろを通らないと出口にはつかない。そんなの無理。でも。
I bit my lip and continued scanning the room.
あれに対抗できるようなものがあればいいんだけど。
I didn't have time to think carefully about it. I just had to grab something and hope for the best. There were two choices, and I had to pick one on my impulse before it was too late. Bag of salt.
これって科学の実験の時に使った塩の残りだよね。
You guys, we're gonna actually end the episode here. Hopefully, you guys did enjoy. We're taking a bag of salt, dude. I don't know if that's the right answer, but we'll see. Hopefully, you guys did enjoy this. If you did, please remember to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.